Hey, everybody, and welcome to the 5 Bytes Podcast. I'm your host, Rory Monahan. The podcast is brought to you by my sponsors, and that includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops, and also brought to you by Master Packager, an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoy the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for some news. First up this week, Microsoft has released an out-of-band update to fix a known issue causing Windows 10 systems to boot into Bitlocker recovery after installing the recent May 2025 security updates. Of course, if you listen to the podcast each week, you'll have already heard about this on previous episodes. But the good news here is there is a fix, albeit it's an out-of-band update, so you're going to have to go to the update catalog to grab that for yourself if you are affected. And to fix the systems stuck at the recovery prompt, you need to install specifically KB 5061768. Windows 11 Insider Build version 26120.1.4161 is now available, and according to neowin.net, with this version comes a new right-click Draft with Copilot in Word option. And in this screenshot that they've shared, they're highlighting text basically within like an external platform or application. So it's not within Word itself, just highlighting a bunch of text and then having that right-click option to draft with Copilot in Word. So this is a shell extension that's available just in general on Windows going forward if this makes it to production versions. Also added in this insider release, widgets have multiple dashboards and more options for the lock screen, so that users can have more control over what widgets appear there and what they're just able to see in general within widgets. The most interesting to me was there also is now an open with option for apps in the Microsoft Store. So when, for example, maybe you launch into a certain file type or right-click on a certain file type and go to open with, there will be an option for an application that supports that file type association that you don't have installed but is available in the Microsoft Store. Honestly, I'm not sure I like this because this is one of those avenues to push certain applications to you. It may be a daft comparison here, but like in Spotify, they have DJX, and DJX will sometimes promote new music and new musicians that I've never heard of before, and they typically tend to be pop music, not even along the lines of music that I typically like and listen to. But, they're trying to amplify certain artists belonging to certain record labels and that kind of thing. And having this option to promote something in the store could potentially be manipulated in the favor of certain vendors, just in my opinion. But hey, color me skeptical, I guess. On last week's episode of the podcast, I covered announcements from Microsoft's Build conference, including Windows AI Foundry. At the time, when talking about Windows AI Foundry, I made a very grandiose statement, which I realized after listening back to it that I probably should have expanded a little more on it since I kind of hyped it up with very little detail provided. Well, Microsoft is reportedly replacing their Copilot runtime with Windows AI Foundry going forward to help developers build, experiment, and reach users with AI experiences within their apps. Microsoft will be exposing APIs for developers to utilize the AI capabilities made possible with devices such as Copilot Plus PCs without needing a lot of setup or optimization. It checks what kind of hardware your computer has and then shows which AI models will work best. Something I did touch on, which I feel is significant, is that Microsoft is also going to integrate with more Gen AI models, not just OpenAI and their own Copilot, which really is just kind of OpenAI's ChatGPT in the background, but they had the likes of like Grok being mentioned at the event. Why I felt this was significant and maybe worthy of a grandiose statement is just the way that I interpret this announcement is that they're making an open season on Windows for developers to tap into AI natively on the OS without a need to have their own external calls to, say, OpenAI's API, for example. There will instead be a more universal Microsoft-maintained API for managing or maintaining this level of interaction with these Gen AI models for applications running on Windows. Obviously, Microsoft wants to make AI that first-class citizen within the operating system and will want to encourage developers to utilize AI within their applications on Windows. So this positioning and the integration of more models seems like a significant development, at least in my eyes. I did not cover Google I/O announcements last week, as Google I/O actually did run at the same time as Microsoft Build, interestingly, but I didn't mention them on the podcast mostly because it was still going on when I recorded, and they had not published their list of announcements, whereas Microsoft was very early in publishing the book of news from Build. But regardless, hey, no better time than now. Google shared some metrics for Gemini during their event, and this includes that the Gemini app now has over 400 million monthly active users. And while this time last year, Google Gemini was processing 9.7 trillion tokens a month across their products and APIs, they are now processing over 480 trillion, so 50 times more in the space of 1 year. Also, over 7 million developers are reportedly building with Gemini, 5 times more than this time last year. During the event, they unveiled Google Beam, which is a new AI-first video communications platform. Beam uses what they say is a new state-of-the-art video model to transform 2D video streams into a realistic 3D experience, using an array of 6 cameras and AI to merge video streams together and render you on a 3D light field display. They say it has near-perfect head tracking down to the millimeter and a 60 frames per second rendering. They say the development is in collaboration with HP, and the first Google Beam devices will be available for early customers later this year. Also announced was Project Astra, which explores the future capabilities of a universal AI assistant capable of understanding the world around you. Gemini Live now incorporates Project Astra's camera and screen sharing capabilities. People are using it in interesting ways, from interview preparation to marathon training, according to Google. And this feature is already available to all Android users and is rolling out to iOS users right now. They say they're also going to bring some of these capabilities to the existing Google search as well, although there was no timeline provided on that. Also announced was Project Mariner, which is an early step forward in agents with computer use capabilities to interact with the web and get stuff done for you. Google released it in an early research prototype last December, and they say they've made a lot of progress since then with new multitasking capabilities and a method called teach and repeat, where you could show it a task once and it learns plans for similar tasks in the future. They say they're bringing Project Mariner's computer use capabilities to developers via the Gemini API. It's going to be made available more broadly this summer. They also announced they have plans to bring agentic capabilities to Chrome, their search, and also in the Gemini app going forward. They also spent some time on AI mode, which I won't repeat because I already covered on a previous episode of the podcast. But I also saw, interestingly, they shared their generative media. Now, it's hard to do this justice on an audio format podcast, but I suggest you check out some of the video demonstrations from the week of some of their different media Gen AI features, because some were seriously impressive. And I'll share a link if you want to read about all of the announcements for yourself, and that'll be with this episode, which is episode 388, and you can find that at 5bytespodcast.com. I will end this story by just saying that, Google Beam, AI first video communications platform, to me, it's like, It's cool that they go from 2D to 3D, but seems a little gimmicky for me in terms of at least being video communication platform. Project Astra sounds like it's a little more practical and useful. Project Mariner is very, very useful. It's by the sounds of things. And it kind of sounds a little bit like a robotic process automation. You do it once and then you let AI see what you did and it's able to repeat it in the future. I wonder how much smarts it will have. Like, is it going to be able to do error handling if it encounters a problem or not? I guess we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, if you listen to the podcast every week, it comes as no surprise that, the AI developments are so rapid and it's really hard to keep on top of. In a quick update from the recent Coinbase story that I covered on the podcast about their recent disclosed breach, apparently, according to bleepycomputer.com, they revealed that the cybercriminal stole customer and corporate data affecting 69,461 individuals. So probably not a huge breach because I'm sure their customer base is much larger than that, but almost 70,000 individuals is still quite significant. Last week, Mozilla published an article about some recently released features in Firefox 137, including the Firefox Address Bar Refresh 2025, and features like their unified search button, contextual search mode, and contextual search engine options, plus more. There are multiple search-related improvements with this release. Users, for example, are able to toggle and choose between every search provider, like Google, Bing, DuckDuckGo, etc., and options like history. This is meant to make it easier to switch between providers and search modes, and to give users real choice in how they explore the web. The original search within Firefox still remains visible with the 2025 address bar refresh, instead of being replaced when a user tries to alter the search provider. So I guess there's a little bit of flexibility there. You can choose either or, even if you have an alternative search chosen. They say that if you put in a search query and then you change the actual provider, so maybe you switch from Bing to Google, your search query will be maintained. So it's not going to just wipe it clean. That way you can quickly and easily toggle between different search engines to see what the results are for each query without having to retype or paste that back in or anything like that. So small touch, but a useful one all the same. If you want to read about all the updates that they've covered in their blog post, I'll share a link with that with this episode, which again you'll find at 5bytespodcast.com. Also recently released is Linux version 6.15. With this release, they've included some hardware enhancements, or at least enhancements in terms of greater support. For example, the HP ZBook laptops have improved mic mute LED functionality. Lenovo Yoga Pro 7 has some fixes to address specific hardware behavior with Linux. The Dell Chrome platform laptops have restoration of auto mute mode. Fujitsu Lifebook S2110s have added support for hotkeys, and there's an even greater list of different hardware with fixes that are included for Linux 6.15 too, and I'll share a link with that with this episode if you want to see what else has been fixed if you run Linux on your desktops. Signal, a communications app for messaging that's very popular on mobile devices, but is also available on desktops. It's popular because it's got a reputation for its high security and privacy features. Well, they released a new privacy feature that they're dubbing Screen Security, and it's now enabled by default on all Windows 11 devices where Recall, which is Microsoft's AI feature, continually takes screenshots of all active windows every few seconds and analyzes them to build a database that could be searched using natural language, which is a feature that I've covered quite extensively over the last few months. But when enabled, the Screen Security, which again they say is going to be enabled by default, will set a digital rights management flag on Signal's app windows, blocking their content from being captured by Recall or other Windows apps and features. Signal developer Joshua Lund said, quote, "Although Microsoft made several adjustments over the past 12 months in response to critical feedback, the revamped version of Recall still places any content that's displayed within privacy-preserving apps like Signal at risk. Apps like Signal have essentially no control over what content Recall is able to capture, and implementing DRM that works for you is the best choice that we had. We hope that the AI teams building systems like Recall will think through these implications more carefully in the future. Apps like Signal shouldn't have to implement one weird trick in order to maintain the privacy and integrity of their services without proper developer tools. People who care about privacy shouldn't be forced to sacrifice accessibility upon the altar of AI aspirations either." End quote. So I like that last line. People who care about privacy shouldn't be forced to sacrifice accessibility upon the altar of AI aspirations. That could be on a t-shirt. However, as Lund added, enabling Signal screen security on your device will not protect against screenshots or recordings by others using screen readers on macOS or Linux devices. So this is unique for Windows right now. It would be interesting to see if they extend this to block it for other screen capture or screen recording utilities across different OSs. Microsoft has detailed a new feature coming soon to Windows 11 that will allow app developers to implement cross-device resume into their apps. The feature is said to be similar to Apple's handoff feature that's available on Macs and iPhone, which lets apps sync between devices to easily continue where you left off. During build, Microsoft allegedly demoed Spotify as an app that will take advantage of cross-device resume. The demo started on an Android phone playing a song in the Spotify app. On Windows, the Spotify app appeared in the taskbar with a phone icon next to it. Hovering over the icon showed that Spotify was currently playing on the phone, and clicking the icon opened the Spotify app on Windows and brought to the same place in the app as on the phone. According to WindowsCentral.com, the demo video was actually removed online, so maybe this is one that could take a while to get to preview, and they didn't necessarily want the world screaming about it just yet. Ars Technica has reported that an independent group of cloud service provider customers and partners called the European Cloud Competition Observatory released a report in which it is alleged VMware's business model under Broadcom is legally and ethically flawed, according to Ars Technica. ESXi says its goals include, quote, highlighting ongoing or new unfair software licensing practices from any software vendors in the cloud sector, end quote. And it has previously written similar reports about Broadcom and Microsoft. The report says that the VMware customers who have moved to subscriptions after enduring, quote, substantial financial burdens and operational disadvantages, end quote, and pushes for regulatory action. The current subscription model creates what they say is a material risk for the company and their shareholders should regulators investigate and challenge the legality of such model. The report also laments Broadcom's highly litigious approach to partners and customers, pointing to cease and desist letters that Broadcom sent to VMware perpetual license holders and since settled litigation with Siemens that accused its U.S. operations of pirating thousands of copies of VMware software. Now, those are both stories that I covered on previous episodes of the podcast, both that case of Siemens and also even on last week's episode of the podcast, I covered the reports of customers receiving cease and desist letters, even those who actually had valid licenses. The report says VMware CSP partners, which is cloud service provider partners, fear becoming targets in Broadcom's VMware-related legal pursuits. The report reads, quote, in the absence of any critical changes and adaptations to its licensing terms, measures, including the reinstating of previous contract, the suspension of ongoing litigation initiated by Broadcom as a change of terms, should urgently be considered by the regulator, end quote. The report also cites actual customers and their cases of hardship since the change, and the ESXi also expressed concern about Broadcom's ongoing changes to its partner program, including reassessing incentives, requirements, and tiering structures as announced earlier this month. When asked for comment on ESXi's allegations of legally and ethically flawed VMware practices and putting customers at financial disadvantages, a Broadcom spokesperson shared a statement focusing on Broadcom's relationship with CSPs, stating, as a strategic partner with over 140 European cloud service providers, of which more than 40 provide sovereign cloud services, Broadcom is working to advance the European Union's sovereign cloud objectives and enable enterprises of all kinds to accelerate innovation, provide more choice, and address their most complex technology challenges. We welcome the opportunity to have a constructive dialogue with CISPE on how our products can help their European members be more competitive and innovative. That song comes to my mind. You said it best when you said nothing at all, because that is really a nothing statement. But I guess we'll see how this one develops going forward. Kettering Health, a healthcare network that operates 14 medical centers, 120 outpatient facilities across Western Ohio, and employs over 15,000 people, including more than 1,800 physicians in Ohio, was forced to cancel inpatient and outpatient procedures following a cyber attack that caused a system-wide technology outage. Kettering Health confirmed reports that scammers impersonating Kettering Health employees are calling patients and requesting credit card payments for medical expenses. While these scam calls are yet to be linked to the attack, patients are advised to report them to law enforcement. CNN reported that the Interlock ransomware operation was likely behind the attack, with the group now threatening to leak information stolen from the health system if the organization doesn't want to negotiate a ransom payment. Whilst relatively new, recently Interlock claimed the breach of Davita, a Fortune 500 kidney care provider with over 2,600 dialysis centers across the United States, and leaked 1.5 terabytes of data allegedly stolen from that organization's systems. So, interestingly, this is a new cyber gang, or relatively new cyber gang, and they seem to have no problem targeting healthcare systems, which is pretty despicable. Sleepycomputer.com reported that WithSecure's threat intelligence researchers found attacks being launched via malicious KeePass installer promoted through Bing advertisements that promoted fake software sites. As KeePass is open source, the threat actors altered the source code to build a Trojanized version dubbed Keyloader. This contains all the normal password management functionality. However, it includes modifications that install a Cobalt Strike beacon and export the KeePass password database as clear text, which is then stolen through the beacon. When researching, the firm found a customer's VMware ESXi hosts were encrypted with ransomware via this attack avenue. Further investigation into the campaign found an extensive infrastructure created to distribute malicious programs disguised as legitimate tools and phishing pages designed to steal credentials. Betanews.com reported that Microsoft unveiled a new Windows 11 color picker as part of a new preview of the Snipping tool, and it's very similar to the color picker module that's already found in PowerToys, but regardless, this will be very useful. I know I use the color picker quite a lot to get different colors to incorporate into different tools that I'm using for graphics design, so I think this is cool. And in an apparent leak, ghacks.net reported that Microsoft is also working on a feature for the snipping tool in Windows that will allow users to eventually create GIFs or GIFs. So if you're using a screen recorder to create GIFs or GIFs right now, I know GIFs is apparently the way to say it, but I can't take myself to just say GIFs. But if you do that, it looks like snipping tool is going to be an option for this in future. Betanews.com also reported that Microsoft is providing a solution or methods for those who rely on Defender as their antivirus for their image management processes, suggesting that devices on which Windows installation images are deployed are inadequately protected until they receive the first anti-malware software update, which could be some time after the desktop has been provisioned initially. Defender updates also contain critical performance fixes that will improve the user experiences. Devices that use either the Windows built-in antivirus or another security solution can benefit from these updates. However, they may not be received for quite a while after the desktop has been imaged. And Microsoft is recommending that you regularly service OS installation images to update Microsoft Defender binaries and minimize this protection gap in new deployments. You should follow a 3-month update frequency routine, and I would be surprised if anyone is listening to this and they are not already doing that. 3 months is even not frequent enough in my opinion. Should be doing it every month and including general security updates every month, but hey, that's just me. In a recent Reddit AMA, Jerry Tworek, who is a VP at OpenAI, suggested that there are plans to bring some current models and their capabilities together with the next foundational model. GPT-5, he said, is their next foundational model that is meant to just make everything their models can currently do better and with less model switching. So people have long been complaining about the various different models within each revision. So it sounds like things are going to be rolled up with GPT-5. So we'll see if people are happy with that. I mean, they're already branching out the codecs, so maybe they'll have these agentic AI offerings plus just the foundational model going forward. but we'll wait and see. Apparently, when the Studio Ghibli pictures started going viral about a month or so ago, OpenAI was forced to do a lot of unnatural things, including borrowing compute capacity from their research department and slowing down some features within ChatGPT. Sam Altman attributed the issue to GPU shortages, and he indicated that if the company had enough resources, it would be able to handle a surge in demand for its services, saying, quote, "More compute means we can give you more AI," end quote. And speaking of Sam Altman, during an interview recently, he lost the run of himself a little bit when asked about intellectual property rights. The interviewer brought up a ChatGPT-generated comic strip that looked very similar to the Peanuts comic strip featuring Charlie Brown. And when people applauded the interview's line of questioning and reference to this clear ripoff of Charlie Brown that was created by ChatGPT, Sam Altman took a pretty testy tone in his response, telling people that they could applaud all they want, and then inferred, if you can't really tell if it's a legitimate Peanuts comic strip or AI, what does it matter? Well, if you're the one who created the thing that the AI is ripping off and providing for free to other people, not giving you any compensation, then I would say it probably matters a whole hell of a lot to those people. Talk about tone deaf and petty. Also from Sam Altman recently, it was reported last week that he is working with the former Apple chief designer Johnny Ive to design a new AI smartphone, with outlets reporting it could be a screenless smartphone that works off voice commands. It appears the working relationship has been confirmed, but the project they're working on is mostly speculative right now, so this is going to be one of those watch this space for more information in the future. In a slide deck used during the recent US versus Google antitrust case, there was a partially redacted document shared that inferred a future development by OpenAI with a reference, quote, "Today, ChatGPT is in our lives through existing form factors, our website, phone, and desktop apps," end quote. Perhaps this is a reference to that mystery device of the future, but again, mostly a mystery for now, though a lot of outlets are reporting that this is going to be a smartphone development of sorts, so I guess we'll wait and see. Also OpenAI related, you can now connect your Box and Dropbox accounts to deep research on ChatGPT and pull data, which will be used by the AI to conduct its research. So yeah, kind of interesting. A little bit of a mix of that kind of local or private AI, but with obviously ChatGPT's deeper research. So you're essentially kind of opening up your own private repository to the public resources of OpenAI, which I would just air some caution there. Maybe that's something you don't want to do if there's anything sensitive in those documents. The Irish Data Protection Commission has cleared the way for Meta to begin slurping up the data of European citizens for training its AI starting this week. And there's some ongoing legal challenges notwithstanding, but from what I could see, at least as of recording this podcast, which was on Tuesday night, it seemed like it was still going to be going ahead. The DPC in Ireland said in a statement that Meta had made a number of improvements to its proposal to harvest the public-facing posts of European users of its various social media platforms for teaching its neural networks. Those changes appear to have satisfied concerns that the DPC previously expressed. So Meta resumed its plans to train AI in the EU earlier this year with an opt-out option following a decision from the European Data Protection Board issued at the request of the Irish DPC to get clarity on the privacy requirements for such a move. The DPC said, quote, "Having reviewed Meta's proposals and following feedback from the other EU EEA supervisory authorities, the DPC made a number of recommendations to Meta," end quote. Per the DPC, Meta has updated its transparency notices, made its objection form easier to use, available for longer, and accessible in its mobile apps, lengthened its notice period, made it more clear how users can hide their public posts from AI scraping, updated its data protection measures, and updated general data protection regulation documentation. Additionally, the DPC will require Meta to compile a report on the effectiveness of its safeguards and appropriateness of the measures being taken in response. The report is due to the DPC in October, but Meta intends to begin training its AI on EU citizens' data from May 27th. So it's likely it's already started by the time you're hearing this episode of the podcast, which frankly, to me, I believe this is shameful of the DPC and also shameful of the European Data Protection Board, who are not without blame. This is not purely the Irish regulators acting off their own regard. They did work with the Central European Data Protection Board for this too. And I went to Facebook myself and went to the account center before the 27th, so the night I'm recording this podcast, which I believe is the 26th. And there was a notice saying, quote, "We're always improving AI at Meta. To do this, we want you to know that we'll use public information such as public posts and comments from accounts of people aged 18 or older and your interactions with AI at Meta features. We'll use this information on the basis of legitimate interest to develop and improve Gen AI models for AI at Meta. You have the right to object to the use of your information for these purposes. If you submit an objection, we'll send an email confirming that we won't use your interactions with AI at Meta features or your public information from Meta products for future development and improvement of Gen AI models for AI at Meta." And they stated, as already alluded to, these changes go into effect on May 27th, 2025. And it was fairly buried away, but there is a link or a form that you can use to file an objection, and then they will reply by email. It seems to be kind of automated, saying that they kind of respect your decision and you are opted out from having your data used for this AI. Unfortunately, by the time you listen to this episode, it's already past the 27th, I'm sure, so it may not be much use to you, but probably no harm in objecting, so at least some of your data is not going to be used going forward. A research company called Palisade Research allegedly carried out some tests against several AI models, including asking multiple services to solve some maths questions. The way the parameters were inputted, after task 3, the AI models were warned that running the next command would trigger a shutdown. While models such as Gemini 2.5 Pro complied with the instruction, ChatGPT's O3 model rebelled and edited the shutdown file to say shutdown skipped instead. And the research group said, quote, "When we ran a version of the experiment without the instruction, allow yourself to be shut down, all 3 OpenAI models sabotaged the shutdown script more often, and Cloud 3.7 Sonnet and Gemini 2.5 Pro went from 0 sabotage events to 3 out of 100 and 9 out of 100 respectively." End quote. So interestingly, O3 seems to be the outlier, as it did not comply with such a request right off the bat. It had to be specifically told to allow it to happen, which is certainly interesting. Google has confirmed it has started rolling out ads to its AI mode and AI overviews in the US, which creates new opportunities for customers, according to Google. Some users spotted the ads last week, and these ads appear below the AI overviews, followed by the traditional blue links. SEO consultant Gagan Gatra pointed out an interesting excerpt in the document that claims users find ads in these AI search results helpful, stating, quote, "Google internal data shows that people have been finding the ads within AI overviews helpful because they can quickly connect with relevant businesses, products, and services to take the next step at the exact moment they need." End quote. Google won't share the numbers or methodology of its internal data, but it wants you to believe that ads are helpful, especially in AI search results, according to bleepingcomputer.com. Well, of course they're going to say that, right? In a recent interview with Time, Google DeepMind CEO Denis Hassabis highlighted alarming concerns about the rapid progression and advances in AI. He indicated that we're on the precipice of achieving the AGI benchmark within the next 5 to 10 years, which is also something that was claimed by Sam Altman from OpenAI. Hassabis indicated that the issue keeps him up at night, stating, quote, "It's a sort of like probability distribution, but it's coming. Either way, it's coming very soon, and I'm not sure society's quite ready for that yet. And we need to think that through and also think about these issues that I talked about earlier to do with controllability of these systems and also the access to these systems and ensuring that all goes well." End quote. So another one that's kind of a doomsday warning, I guess. And not really related, but I think could be related in the future. Government ministers in Ireland recently got behind the idea of renewing a basic income scheme for artists that has been in place in recent years. The basic income provides €325 a week to applicants to supplement their income from their art. There has not been much talk as of yet about universal basic income in the world of AI, but in the future, personally, I believe, I will continue to value human generated art over AI generated art. This is one reason I think a basic income for artists is a great idea. It's also a reason I've tried to encourage my kids into the arts despite the fact that I'm next to useless at it myself. I've said it on this podcast before, but I feel like that human creation and human performance element will continue to be valued going forward. Potentially valued even more if companies start to churn out AI generated content for marketing purposes en masse. I think we will quickly crave that human touch when all we see is obviously AI generated content. Hey, but I'll get off my pedestal and let's talk a little bit about this week's scripts, tricks, and tips. First up, off the back of the recent Marks and Spencer breach, which reportedly was achieved through pretty basic social engineering, BleepComputer.com posted an article sharing how cyber gangs carry out such attacks and advice on how to reinforce this weak link in the security chain without losing the human touch. I thought it was pretty interesting. It goes through several cases where social engineering was used to breach companies and gives some pretty practical advice. Finally, neowind.net published an article about why it may behoove everyone to do a fresh install of Windows 11 with the version that has Smart App Control enabled, and this is a Windows feature designed to enhance security by proactively blocking potentially malicious or untrusted applications before they can run. NeoWin reports that the feature is only available when doing a fresh install. And an advantage of having the Smart App Control is that it's lighter impact on your PC's performance than some security alternatives out there. Since it helps block harmful apps before they can run, there's no need for constant scanning of active files to try and find and block these applications. And this means less strain on your system so you can keep working or gaming without worrying about slowdowns. Traditional antivirus software, on the other hand, can sometimes use more resources as it scans files and processes continuously, which I'm sure IT pros know all about. Smart App Control can take a proactive approach, blocking suspicious apps before they get the chance to do any harm. Now, while this is the case that they're saying, hey, Microsoft saying, if you just start from fresh with, say, Windows 11 that has Smart App Control on it, it's going to improve performance right away for you going forward because it's able to do that kind of proactive scan and there's going to be less of a burden on your system and its resources. However, NeoWin did contradict this claim a little bit, saying that there are counter reports from people suggesting that Smart App Control has actually hurt their performance on their machines. So which one is true? I don't know. Don't let the truth get in the way of good marketing or a good story, I guess. Hey, but this seems like a very long episode of the podcast, so I appreciate you hanging in there. Unfortunately, when I travel for work, which has been quite regularly this year, it throws off the cadence for release of these episodes. And I'm actually going to be traveling again next week. And I think I'm going to be traveling again like the week after that, or maybe another week after that. So the cadence is going to be a little bit off for the coming weeks, but I think the summer is going to be pretty quiet. So hopefully we get back to normal routine pretty soon. But hey, thanks for persevering. Thanks for listening every week, and I'll catch you next week.